Hello YouTube and welcome to my guide to big guys part 1. Today we're going to be looking at the Human Ogre, the Orc Troll, the Skaven Rat Ogre and the Chaos Minotaur. So the first big guy we're going to look at is the Human Ogre. So first of all, to note the stats are 5 movement, 5 strength, 2 agility and armor 9, and the skills are Bonehead, Mighty Blow, Thick Skull, Throw Teammate and Loner. So we're going to go through the pros and cons of each big guy. So the pros for the ogre, humans are a fairly weak team in terms of strength. They tend to struggle against stronger teams or bashier teams. So having the ogre on with Mighty Blow and strength 5 immediately is a really good thing, and having armor 9 as well means it's difficult to take down, so it just adds that bit of strength for the human team. Having strength 5 and armor 9 means they're really good at getting in the way, and Bonehead is only a 1 in 6 to fail, so it means that it is unlikely to fail. Still does, but it is unlikely. And then finally, having that Mighty Blow on the team is really good. Getting those removals as early as they possibly can means that they can get through teams pretty easily and allow the other members of the team to do what they need to do in passing the ball around and getting those touchdowns. So some of the cons of the team, so like I mentioned earlier, Bonehead does fail occasionally, and so it means that the tackle zones are then lost. And with it failing, it can fail at the worst time, so might be at a key moment when you need it to work and it just doesn't, and that is an unfortunate side effect of Bonehead. So for them to be effective, you're really wanting them to have block. Unfortunately, don't start with it, and it is a double for them to roll a block, so it does mean that it is difficult to get that. But with the ogre on a human team, you do tend to see them staying in the late games. With the higher TV human teams, you tend to see them still with that ogre, and their access that they have, they only have access to strength. Everything else is a double. They have no mutation access. Don't really get a big range of different skills they can do, but they can be very useful on the human team, and later on in the game they can be incredibly useful, having guard and sticking them in really awkward places. So the second big guy we are going to look at is the troll on the orc team. Now, first thing to note are the stats are 4 movement, 5 strength, 1 agility and armor 9. And their skills are Loner, Always Hungry, Mighty Blow, Really Stupid, Regeneration and Throw Teammate. So the pros of this big guy: the strength is not a bad thing. Pretty good strength there for the orc team. Orcs tend to have a fairly big range of strength anyway, so having that high-end strength is quite nice for them. And with the troll having Throw Teammate, it does give you that 1-turn touchdown potential if that's the strategy you wish to take. That's why this one can be a bit controversial. You see some teams taking it, some teams not taking it. It is all about your preference and style of play. So the cons of this big guy is that with Always Hungry, you could potentially eat the goblin. It could potentially kill it. With this big guy, if you are wanting to use it for the 1-turn touchdown, some people just use it for the strength, but if you're wanting it for the 1-turn touchdowns specifically, that is forcing a goblin to take up a spot on the team, and goblins being quite weak and squishy can be a bit of a weakness of the team, so it can add a weakness into it, but also the strength of the 1-turn touchdown, so you have to weigh up those odds of which do you want to use. And then because of Really Stupid, it does mean that it needs babysitting. So really, the way Really Stupid works is if it has a player on its own team next to it, it's a 2+ to activate. If it does not, it is a 4+. So it does mean that you have to have somebody with the troll a lot, and you can't just leave it on its own to get on with, you know, taking up space and hitting things. So it does mean that something has to be following it around. So again, pros and cons. There are some really good things for it, like the 1-turn touchdown, but needing babysitting and having the Always Hungry means that that is quite risky and it needs somebody with it. So the third big guy we are going to look at is the Rat Ogre on the Skaven team. Now, the stats on this one are movement 6, strength 5, agility 2, and armor 8. And the skills it comes with are Frenzy, Mighty Blow, Loner, Prehensile Tail, and Wild Animal. So Skaven generally are not a bashy team. They tend to be a very agility based team, so having that strength 5 on it early on is quite nice, and it isn't a slow big guy either with movement 6. That does mean it can get around the pitch quite nicely. With the Frenzy being on there immediately means that there is some removal potential with surfing, and also having Mighty Blow means that the hits are also going to be removing things. Prehensile Tail is a really good skill, meaning that agility teams like elves can get stuck around it because it is not very easy to dodge away from this big guy. Now, some of the cons for this big guy, it is armor 8, so that does mean it is a bit easier to kill it, and it can get taken out from your team quite easily, especially if there's some other teams with Mighty Blow on it. This armor 8 is looking a little dicey. With Wild Animal, the way Wild Animal works is with a block or a blitz, it's a 2+ to activate, or anything else is a 4+ to activate. So it does mean that you'll be using the Rat Ogre quite a bit for those blitzes, and really that ends up soaking up the SPP onto the Rat Ogre rather than some of those other key pieces like your blitzers that you want to be leveling. And then later on with higher TV Skaven, you tend not to see people taking the Rat Ogre or using the Rat Ogre as much, so later on in the game it doesn't tend to be as good. So good for early Skaven, but then later on you might not be using it or might not want to be using it as much, as it becomes less and less reliable with that Wild Animal, with that loner skill. It just becomes too much of a liability. And then finally we have the Minotaur on the Chaos team. There is a difference between the Minotaur on the Chaos team and a Minotaur on the Chaos Dwarf team, but I will get into that later on. For now we're looking at this Minotaur. So first of all, the stats are movement 5, strength 5, agility 2, and armor 8. And the skills that it comes with are Thick Skull, Mighty Blow, Horns, Frenzy, Loner, and Wild Animal. So the pros for this big guy, strength 5 is really nice to have, especially paired with Mighty Blow, and when you blitz with Horns it then actually becomes strength 6. So those combined means that it's quite strong as a blitzing piece to increase its strength to strength 6, and then having that Mighty Blow to help support take those players off means it's a really good punching piece. It gets those removals for you, and if you just have one assist for that blitz, it usually becomes a 3 dice hit rather than just a 2 dice, which is really useful, and with Mighty Blow almost guarantees that removal. And then obviously again Frenzy, you've got those extra hits, and also you've got those surfing potentials, which is always useful to have to get those players off the pitch, meaning you are removing things left, right, and center. So the cons of this big guy: armor 8, so once again quite easy to remove if you've got the pieces to do it. Frenzy is always a double-edged sword. You've got to be careful, as again with the Rat Ogre earlier, you've got to be careful with like frenzy traps, things like that. It can be a bit of an issue. Wild Animal, it demands the blitz from it, so again you can be sucking up all the SPP onto this piece rather than some of your other pieces on the team, and you don't want it just becomes your blitz piece all the time. And then later on in the team, when you have higher TV, you tend to have your killer pieces all built up around in the team already, and the miner becomes less and less used because you have those kill pieces already. You don't necessarily need to have the miner. The miner becomes more and more unreliable because you're having to roll dice to activate it. It just becomes a bit too of a liability. And then the access that this miner has, it has strength and mutation access. Everything else is on a double, so it does have some nice access. And with Mighty Blow, really, like immediately, Claw is an extremely good skill to take. Having that Claw Mighty Blow means you will be removing things easier, quicker, and with a lot more frequency. This was part 1 of my big guys. I introduced you to 4 different big guys. Please remember to like and subscribe, and I shall see you in the next video or stream. Bye!